Chances are, if you can tell where we're sitting right now, you've had and enjoyed a beer here at Dogfish Head.
I know I have, and they've been doing this for 30 years, just making delightful brews for everybody here along the coast. And Charlie, you actually had a chance to chat with their founder.
Let's take a look and see what that went like. From the logo to the brewery to the beers themselves, Dogfish Head has become an iconic staple of Southern Delaware, and now, 30 years in, it's one of the top craft breweries in the nation. But that's not how it started. 3 decades ago, founder Sam Calagione was just an English major with a side gig.
I earned my rent by working at a beer bar on the Upper West Side, and myself and the owner of that beer bar, I was like 23 years old, he was 27. We just got smitten with a beer bug.
And that was no passing fancy. He bought a brew kit, and armed with some fruity, citrusy hops, he stumbled upon a key ingredient at a local bodega.
And I just kind of on a whim said, I bet those cherries would taste really good squished into this pale ale recipe. So I bought the cheap, overly ripe cherries, brewed the pale ale, and literally squished the cherries into my pot, let the yeast eat both the barley sugars and the cherry sugars, and the batch turned out amazing. I stood up in my living room in New York City and said, this is what I'm going to do in my life.
And just how does one single brewed beer in a New York apartment lead to all of this?
Probably the foolish bravado of youth, Charlie. That was the secret ingredient. So the fearlessness of writing a business plan with no experience as a 23-year-old.
But the journey from point A to point B is never a straight line, and Dogfish Head was not an overnight success. First, Calagione had to raise money, about $220,000 from family and friends, and then the real work started.
We were struggling from 95 to like 97. Like I said, we're brewing these exotic recipes, and it was kind of hard to sell to folks in a state that didn't have a brewery yet and convince them not just to drink pale ales, but to drink beers that had these exotic culinary ingredients.
The Dogfish, which is a small shark, had to play the role of salmon for a long time, swimming against the current of the craft beer industry.
Back when Dogfish was brewing these culinary beers, that was not a trend in the craft brewing world at all. It was like ambers and lagers and pilsners and stouts. I would take my beers to a festival in Philly or Baltimore or New York. We would get laughed at, or people would get mad at us for putting coffee and licorice and raisins in beers. It was not at all considered cool. It was considered, foolhardy, disrespectful to the brewing styles.
But the vision was there, and Calagione kept pounding the pavement, driving his own deliveries to Manhattan, DC, Baltimore, Philly, and finding other ways to make important connections.
I would take buckets of them and go visit Sports Illustrated magazine or, Bon Appetit editorial team or Art Forum or Interview magazine. And I would work with the media to talk about these beers as if they weren't just recipes, but exciting stories.
And then a handful of things happened all around the same time. Articles in Esquire and People magazine, the release of the 90-minute IPA, and the award-winning Midas Touch.
And that was really a turning point of, oh my God, are we going to go out of business, to holy crap, we can't keep up with demand. And Dogfish enjoyed almost, 20 years in a row of double-digit growth after that moment.
A victory as sweet as the first sip of beer on a hot summer day. But while this story is focused on founder Sam Calagione, he himself spent a lot of time doling out credit, not only to all the people that work at Dogfish Head across all their many business ventures, but also to one other very important person.
I got to give special props to my wife, Mariah Draper Calagione, because she had very complementary skill sets to me. I was more the storyteller, the recipe developer, the face and the analog voice of the brand, whereas Mariah very quickly in the mid-90s saw that burgeoning internet environment. So Mariah built our social following from 0 people to 1.3 million, and that became the most critical mechanism to engage with our fan base.
A move and a technology that helped even the playing field for a small craft brewery that was chasing and eventually catching nationwide attention.
Yeah, I think it's especially important when you're a very small startup brand, and startup entrepreneurs, you have to wear a lot of hats, even the ones that don't fit you so well, because you can't afford to hire someone who has those skill sets.
Now, some 30 years later, wearing all those different hats has paid off. Dogfish Head is a titan in the industry, and as a full circle moment, they're even selling a version of that old cherry pale ale that started it all back in Calagione's New York apartment. And while he leaves the large-scale brewing to the pros with the PhDs, that spark of inspiration that helped build this whole empire is still fermenting inside Sam.
So I still get to brew on the small scale. I don't even know how to brew on our big equipment anymore. In Milton, that's beyond my ability. So I'm really proud of the brewers that can brew the 200, 2,000 barrel batches. But put me in a room with a 30 barrel batch and an excited fellow brewer, and we'll make some magic happen.
So maybe he's a wizard. After all, most magic and stories of old involve dumping ingredients into a cauldron and mixing them up until they reach the perfect point. But it's probably more accurate to call him a visionary who put in a whole lot of work, got a whole lot of help, and made a whole bunch of people happy through his company's well-crafted concoctions. And we do want to be fully transparent here on the back end of that story.
Yes.
Sam Calagione, who's married to Mariah Draper Calagione, the Draper family, they own Coast TV. So we want everybody to know that as we finish up here.
Yep, exactly. That full transparency is important to us, but it's also important to us that you have a good time with more CoastLife. That's what's up next.